Hey, it's Mike, just checking in. Good audio?
Test.
Testing.
I can hear you. It's Mike.
We heard you, Mike.
Good evening. I want to welcome everybody out. It is 6:00 p.m. and I'd like to call this meeting to order. Thank you for joining us tonight. I want to acknowledge that we have people attending both in person and on Zoom. This is the board's business meeting where we are focused on taking action to support our mission to educate, prepare, and inspire every student to graduate and seek their full potential as lifelong learners. We ask for your cooperation and support as we work together to have a productive in-person board meeting. This meeting is being streamed live and is being recorded on the school district's YouTube channel. Next, I would like to recognize Dr. Sweeting to do our land acknowledgement.
Good evening. We honor the first peoples of these lands by acknowledging that the area in which we gather is within the traditional territory of the Stillaguamish tribe of Indians. The Stillaguamish people have inhabited these lands and waters since time immemorial, and their ancestors had remained in this territory to this day. The Stillaguamish people have continued to practice the traditional ways of their ancestors of fishing, hunting, and gathering. The Stillaguamish tribe has had these lands and cultural traditions passed on to them by their ancestors who believe that everything has a spirit and that they are caretakers of these lands and waters.
Thank you, Dr. Sweeting. Next, I'd like everyone to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. We pledge allegiance. Thank you. You may be seated. Will the clerk please take the attendance?
Director Ray,
I thought I saw Director Ray on Zoom.
Yep, I'm here. Sorry.
Okay.
Couldn't get her going.
Director Kelly,
Here.
Director Kingman,
Here.
President Levesque,
Present.
Director Knapp,
Here.
Student Advisor Madeline Andrich, Student Advisor Kyle Schroeder,
Here.
Superintendent Sweeting.
Here.
Thank you. Are there any changes to the agenda? Do we have a motion to approve the agenda as proposed?
I make a motion that we approve the agenda as proposed.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as proposed. Can we please have a vote?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
Thank you. The agenda is now adopted. Next on the agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes for March 28th regular meeting and the April 18th special meeting study session. Are there any changes to the meeting minutes for the March 28th or April 18th meeting? Do we have a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of March 28th and the special meeting study session minutes from April 18th as presented?
Make a motion to approve the, do I have the name?
The minutes for April 18th, the special study session.
And March 28th.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the meeting minutes from March 28th and April 18th. Clerk, can we please take a vote?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
Thank you. The minutes are approved. Next on the agenda is a presentation, and that is going to be Dr. Sweeting, who will make a few comments, and then she will bring up some speakers.
Good evening again. Each year, the governor prepares a proclamation to honor teachers and certificated staff. And I'm sure that proclamation is forthcoming, but it's not there yet. So we are not available yet. So in its absence, we have created our own statements to proclaim our appreciation. So cabinet members are going to come forward and they're going to read these statements now.
Everybody ready? Here we go. We have a strong, effective system of free public school education for all children and youth is essential to our democratic system of government.
The United States has made considerable progress in the social, technological, and scientific fields due to our system of free and universal public education.
Much of this progress can be attributed to the qualified and dedicated teachers entrusted with the educational development of our children.
Teachers provide opportunities for students to connect with the world around them, develop basic skills for success in life and work, and experience the realization of high expectations and the fulfillment of steps towards achievable goals.
Teachers should be accorded high public esteem, reflecting the value placed on their skills and abilities and the importance of public education.
It is very appropriate that teachers and all certificated staff be recognized for their dedication and commitment to educating our students. We will take next week, May 2nd through 6th, but that's just 1 week. We appreciate them every week, but next week in particular, we're going to across the district honor, celebrate, and appreciate them in special ways. Cabinet is going to come around at the beginning of next week and give sweet reminders by providing sweet rolls at every school on Monday or Tuesday. So we are very appreciative and thank teachers and certificated staff for all they do to educate, prepare and inspire our students, because it is together that we really make a difference for each and every student. So I want to say that to all of our staff. And I don't know if we have all right. So Jason Klein, President of the Arlington Education Association, if you would like to say a few words, we would love you to do that.
Well,
Sorry, Jason. I'm sorry.
that is fine. I would like to, thank you all on behalf of the Arlington Education Association and all of our certificated employees for the nice proclamation. And we will be looking forward to those sweet rolls.
They
Thank
are
you.
good. They are good, Jason, because we tried them out. Cabinet, we looked at a lot of places to find them, and they will be very good. So enjoy. And thank you again to all of our teachers and certificated staff.
Thank you, Dr. Sweeting. Thank you, Eric. And most importantly, thank you, teachers, for all you do for all of our students. Next on the agenda is our public comment portion of our meeting. Do we have anyone signed up to address the board tonight, either virtually or in person?
We do not.
Thank you. Then I will spare us reading of the script. We will move on to the next item on our agenda, which is our public hearing for our Indian education. This will be presented by our distinguished Carrie Helgeson, our Director of Equity and Student Well-Being.
Wow, what an introduction. Thank you. Good evening, directors. I'm going to share my screen. Looks like that works. All right. I am here to share information about the Title VI Indian Education Grant, which is required by law. And then I'll allow members of the community to ask questions. And then after that, I'll be back up here later in the meeting to ask for approval of this grant. All right. So it is the policy of the United States to fulfill the federal government's unique and continuing trust relationship with and responsibility to the Indian people for the education of our Native American children. The Title VI Indian Education Formula Grant Program represents the United States Department of Education's largest investment in addressing the unique academic and cultural needs of American Indian Alaska Native children. Funds are used to support academic enrichment, tutoring, as well as dropout prevention. The purpose of the Title VI grants is to support the efforts of local education agencies to meet the unique educational and culturally related academic needs of our American Indian and Alaska Native students, and also to assist our Indian students to meet the same challenging state academic standards as all other students. Title VI grants are to be used to supplement and enrich the regular school program. Whoop. Not too far. The most common use of the Title VI funds are academic support and incorporating Native American culture into the curriculum and through our cultural enrichment activities. The academic success of Native American students and a strong sense of cultural identity and belonging is the focus of this grant. The grant application is due annually for federal funding through the program. So a little bit of background information. So we did receive this grant this current school year. We were awarded $8,564. That is currently being spent on classroom books to support the implementation of the Sense Time Immemorial curriculum. We have purchased some Burke boxes from the Burke Museum, which are basically portable kits of museum quality collection pieces, artifacts, as well as activities that can be tailored to all ages and interests. And then it also supports classroom curriculum and highlight the natural world and Washington's cultural heritage. We are also purchasing school library books that support the intellectual growth and personal development interests of our Native students. So this application is for year 2 of a 4-year grant. And it is for next year, 2022, 2023. So there are 2 parts to the application process. Part 1 was already completed. It was due by March 11th. And the Title VI funding is calculated with a formula based on the number of students who have submitted an Office of Indian Education Title ED 506 form. So that documents their American Indian or Alaska Native status. 506 forms need to be completed by Native families. This form verifies that the student is an enrolled member of a federally recognized tribe and must show proof of membership by listing the enrollment number. So we have currently roughly about 222 students who have identified as Native through the registration process, but we only have 40 completed forms for this current school year. It is one of the biggest challenges is to get these forms completed by families. So we have increased that by 33% from last year. Last year when we submitted the grant, we had about 30 or 31 students, which is why it was $8,000. That's that formula based on how many students, not the Native students we have in our district, but actually fill out the 506 form. So things that we've talked about in order to increase our enrollment even for the following year, have it more questions in the school registration process, including the 506 form in enrollment packets. We are going to add a link to the 506 form on the district website, so it's easily for families to get to from there. And then hopefully just word of mouth through our connections with our tribes. So then part 2 of the application process, it must include a description of the specific use of the Title VI funds in coordination with the overall comprehensive program plan. So this is where we'll put actually in what are we going to use that money for? We also need to formulate an Indian parent committee, needs to be developed, and they actually help with developing the grant application, and then they have to approve the grant before submitting it to the federal government. And that meeting that I have set up for the parent committee is on April 27th, so in 2 days. So then we have this public hearing, which we are doing right now. And then we have budget information, personnel, supplies, equipment, agreements, whatever once I meet with the Indian Parent Committee, we decide would be best to support our Indian students. And then after that, to monitor the effectiveness of the activities we identify for our Native students, we'll be looking at state assessment scores, attendance data, graduation dropout rate, as well as through the process of next year consulting with the Indian Parent Committee and our partnerships with the Stillaguamish tribe. And then next year, as I was thinking about this today, I want to be able to reach out to the students that we're actually serving through this grant to ask them how we can support their academic and social needs in our schools to get that student voice. And then the part 2 application is due by May 13th. So when we submit part 1, they actually give us a projected allocation amount that if part 2 gets funded, so that's how much we will receive for the 2022-2023 school year, $12,669. So some initial ideas that I had around that to build their cultural and academic support, bringing in the cultural assemblies, going on field trips, guest speakers, academic intervention after school, own voices, books, and other resources. And then once I meet with the parent committee, I'm sure we'll come up with some more ideas that we can put into the grant application. So with that, are there any questions?
I have a question, Carrie. How many times is that parent advisory committee expected to meet And are we meeting those requirements?
Yeah, they're only required to meet this one time to approve the grant. But my plan is to meet with them on an ongoing basis to get their feedback and to hopefully get more parents involved in that parent committee. And then we do have a partnership with the Stillaguamish tribe that we meet with. Chris and I and Carrie Henderson Burke meet with them every 2 weeks to get their feedback as well.
I have a couple of questions for Carrie as well. So to receive the money, you have to apply each year. So if you have 40 students this year and you might end, I mean, do you have a projection of how many participate? Like your funding is based on the 40, not on if you were to get 100. Is that correct?
Right. We'd have
So-
a lot more money if we got 100.
Right. And you would
506
have
one
to,
filled
you
out.
have to do more with less money. In some ways, if you jumped up to 100 students participating, you would still have that 12,000 initial money that's allocated for the 40 right now.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I just.
So
wanna
we
confirm.
had to identify a 30-day, what we call an application window to get those 506 forms filled out.
My other ones, I was thinking of like, what barriers do you think in completing the forms? I'm just wondering, when you mentioned something about, I think student representation.
222, yeah.
Yeah, we have the ACE committee, and that seems to me that would be, it would be great to have something equal to that, or have someone of that population represented on ACE or various, I'm not sure, it's just in one of my mind.
Yeah, that's a good thought.
I mean, it
Yeah.
just, right? It's
Well, we have the equity team as well, and to have representation on that. And I think even maybe getting some students on there within this,
Yeah.
native population would be a good move.
I think it's really key that you, as we always say, when you see others like yourself, right?
Yeah.
And that's so key. And I'm not sure, is there any language barriers, or is it just maybe a cultural?
I think it might be a cultural privacy, maybe an awareness, so we did increase it by 10. A lot of the forms that we had from last year, there may have just been one missing piece. And Brenda did a great job reaching out to those families to get that missing piece on that form so we could count that student.
And do you know what other schools, maybe in, I want to say the area, I just like to do kind of a comparison, but are other schools, it sounds like I don't know if you're saying it's mandated. So I mean, this is something the state of Washington is doing. Is that correct? Okay. So in order to offer programs, you have to put this grant in. So if you don't put a grant in, you don't get money, but then are you penalized because you're not meeting the needs of those students?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's just this is a federal grant,
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
it's there. Yeah, it's just one opportunity, one way to get some resources.
Right.
And just one last thing, Carrie.
Okay.
So when you were saying about field trips, I'm also thinking, is there a way to incorporate the student community as a whole? Because it seems to me, I'm thinking that it's very focused on that population, and you're enriching that, which is great. But I'm wondering, how can we as a district incorporate all of the students to then appreciate the folks that are part of our population that might not be so seen?
What I think that's where bringing the assemblies in and that cultural identity, that's everybody. Yes. And just the other day at Camp Prairie, we had the 3 members of the Stillaguamish tribe come and do a presentation to all their 4th graders. So that's where I'm thinking of bringing assemblies in, guest speakers, having all of our 4th graders go to the cultural centers.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any other questions or comments from any other board members or student advisors? All right, thank you, Carrie.
All right, you're welcome. Thank you.
So the next part of this agenda item is a public comment portion, a public hearing. And so we are going to open the floor to public comments regarding the Title VI Indian Education Program. So please raise your hand if you're a person on Zoom, or if you are in the audience, you could also raise your hand in person. That would work also. I have to ask 3 times legally, so we're going to do this 3 times. It'll be fun. So if you would like to speak, please approach the podium and tell us your name. Is there anyone on Zoom or in the audience who would like to speak? Second time, is there anyone on Zoom that would like to speak, or anyone in our in-person audience that would like to speak on this topic? And for a third time, is there anyone who would like to speak in our public hearing portion regarding our Indian education grant, in person or on Zoom? I see no hands raised in person or on Zoom. So I declare the public hearing closed. Thank you. The approval for this line item will be under new business. Thank you, Carrie. Okay, next, we have our approval of our consent agenda. Our consent agenda includes our budget and enrollment reports, our personnel report, payroll reports, warrants, out-of-state travel, Mark Earhart, and interlocal agreement with Northwest ESW 189, the Snohomish County Detention Center Education Program, an agreement with Northwest ESD 189 for 22 to 23 technology network support services, amendment to contract with Snohomish County Human Services, and then the memorandum of understanding AFJROTC SkillBridge internship agreement. So can we get a motion to approve our consent agenda?
I make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
A second. It's been moved and seconded to approve our consent agenda. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, will you please take a vote?
Little
Director
discussion.
Ray,
Oh, little discussion.
Mike Ray, do you have a
Hey.
comment? Do you want to pull anything?
Just more of a comment, discussion on our awesome consent agenda. Our personnel report contains a lot of staff who are stepping up to the plate for summer school, which is great. Thank you, everybody. And a bunch of additional duties on there, but it also highlights, and I don't see it highlighted anywhere else in here, that we have selected a new high school principal. And I thought I would
Director
make sure
Ray,
that
we are going to make a note of that and have some comments about that as soon as we're done with our consent agenda.
Oh, awesome. Did I miss that on there? So I apologize if I didn't see that on there, but
We were
great.
going to just do it on the fly.
Awesome. Sounds good. I didn't want to miss that. I will stop talking now.
Anything else? We can take a vote to approve our consent agenda.
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
And now our consent agenda is approved. We're going to insert one recognition. Dr. Sweeting is going to introduce someone very special and dear to us. So Dr. Sweeting.
I just wanted to acknowledge in the consent agenda, we approved the new hire of a principal for Arlington High School, Marilee Herman. She is here. Marilee, will you stand and just be acknowledged? She's went through a long process of interviewing, and it was a good process, an inclusive process. And Marilee was the forerunner in all categories, and we're just very grateful and very excited, and I know she is as well. So congratulations, Marilee.
You have to approach the microphone.
I just want to thank the board and the community and our students and our staff for the opportunity. I mean, I just love our community so much. So I know where we've been, I know where we're going, and my door's open for the next stuff that we need. So you guys just let me know. Yep. So thank you for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Sweeting, and thank you, Ms. Herman. We look forward to all the wonderful future. Next on our agenda is our new business, and that first item of new business it's pretty exciting. It's our donation from Arlington Education Foundation, our 2022 spring mini grants. And I'd like to introduce Kevin.
Thank you. Well, good evening. Thanks for, maybe I'll take this out. There we go. Thanks for having us here today. I'm Kevin S. I'm the projects director for the Arlington Education Foundation. And it is my honor and Mark's honor to announce to you tonight the recipients of the Education Foundation's 2022 Spring Classroom Mini Grants. So before I do that, just a little bit about our grants. This is our 11th year awarding grants. And in those 11 years, we try to do more and more every year, but we can say we're proud that we've at this point awarded over $127,000 in classroom grants in those 11 years. So we feel that's pretty cool. So this spring we received 22 applications, and tonight we're going to fund 16 of the 22 received for a total of $9,595 to those 16 teachers or grade teams within the district. So this is obviously a great example of the passion and commitment that these teachers and grade teams have to the students of Arlington. A little bit more about our grants. We distribute applications in the fall and every spring through the building principals. And with those applications are scoring criteria that we use to review and approve the grants. And those criteria are, each grant must have 5 things. It must have clear standards-based academic goals. It must provide long-term sustainable benefits, promote inclusion and equity, have an innovative idea or an element of technology, and ideally it must have an opportunity for family involvement. Grants are structured to limits of $500 for classroom teachers submitting individually, or if a grade team or department is going to submit a grant, we allow up to $1,250 for those submissions. So we're hoping, of course, that many of the recipients are here tonight. I see some smiles, so I know that's the case. So when we call your name and introduce your grant, please come up and get your certificate. All right, so the first grant is for $500 to Trina Sanford, Pioneer Elementary. The grant is titled Reading Rotations. Congratulations. Thank you. This is for purchase of hands-on, developmentally appropriate reading rotation materials for kindergarten. The next grant for $500 is to Jackie Goulet, Pioneer Elementary. This is for a grant titled Diverse Literature for Pioneer Elementary Library. It's for the purchase of books to update the school library, to increase the awareness of monthly themes surrounding topics of diversity and social emotional learning as outlined by the district's equity and student well-being plan. Next grant is for $500 to Julie Polkinghorn of Eagle Creek Elementary. This grant is titled Bringing Learning to Life. This is for the purchase of historically accurate and authentic costumes to be worn yearly by actors during the 4th grade Story Path project, where students engage in units on early explorers, coastal Native Americans, and westward expansion. The second component to this grant will also be used to enhance the 4th grade class baking projects, where students practice and apply math skills to their math units through baking. Next grant is for $1,094.50 to Lindsay Lapata and the 3rd grade team at Pioneer Elementary. This grant is titled Hoppin' to Learn Our Math Facts. It's for the purchase of a multiplication package from Math and Movement, where students solidify their math skills with the use of multiplication mats and body movements. The mats will help third graders learn multiplication and division within 100 and develop fluency in operations and algebraic thinking. Next grant is for $358.99 to Stephanie Mandarano Howe at Pioneer Elementary. This grant is titled NGSS Children's Books. It's for the purchase of children's literature books that will help to teach next generation science standards and concepts. These books will be targeted to 5th grade readers and will be used to generate class discussions and enhance science curriculum for these students. Next grant is for $600 to Aaron Green and Amanda Matthews at the Stillaguamish Valley Learning Center. It's titled Classroom Resources. This is for the purchase of books and math materials for the K-3 classroom library. The book selected will provide equitable reading options for all learners. Next, we have a grant for $814.42 to Denise Wilson and the President's Elementary 5th grade team. This is for a grant entitled Inclusion in Action. This is for the purchase of books for 5th grade classroom libraries that focus on different celebrations, people, and experiences that are introduced throughout the school year. These books will allow students to see elements of themselves in the characters of the books, creating open mindsets, and will encourage students to build connections with each other. Next is $1,196.86 to Abigail Broughton and the 1st grade team at President's Elementary. It's for a grant entitled Bringing Science of Reading to 1st grade learners. This is for the purchase of books, reading bundles, and learning to read materials for the 1st grade classrooms. Next is a grant for $304 to Melissa Donnelly at Kent Prairie Elementary. Congratulations. For a grant titled Diverse and Inclusive Literacy Library for the purchase of books to expand her speech literacy library. Books selected will represent the diversity of the students at Kent Prairie, allowing students to see themselves in the literacy materials used daily. The grant will also include a purchase of a subscription to Symbol 6. Did I get that right? Okay. The Symbol 6 subscription will provide online evidence-based communication that increases student access to learning, language, and self-expression. Next, we have $654.90 to Rachel Harrington and the 6th grade team at Haller Middle School. Thank you. This grant titled Mars Day Rocket Habitat and Energy Specialists for the purchase of 3 water rocket launch pads and PVC pipe to be used at the end of the year full STEM day that is called Mars Day. Students will use these supplies to launch rockets and to spend a day colonizing Mars, where they focus on engineering habitats, building solar panels out of the PVC pipe. Students work in groups specializing in providing shelter, energy, food, and robotics for the colonization of Mars. Pretty cool. Next, we have $190.93 to Kelly Degman and the Wavelength Club at Post Middle School. Thanks, Kelly. This is for a grant titled Wavelength Club Books for the purchase of books to create a small library of LGBTQ+ books for the Post Library. This grant is a project represented by the first LGBTQ+ club, the Wavelength Club at Post Middle School. Book titles will be purchased as recommended by the website Welcoming Schools and will include picture books. All books will address bigger concepts concerning transgender individuals and accepting people that present themselves to the world in unique ways. Next, we have $500 to Greer Vera Davis and the Diversity Club at Haller Middle School. A grant titled Educational Books of Diversity. It's for the purchase of books to increase library resources that emphasize representation of LGBTQIA+ community, women and girls, people of color, reproductive health, and mental health for the Haller Middle School Library. This grant is a project presented by the Diversity Club of Haller Middle School. Next, we have $1,250 to Heather Hubbard and the Assist program at President's Elementary. The grant is titled Social Emotional Learning for All for the purchase of Superflex Superhero Social Thinking Curriculum packages for 15 classrooms at President's Elementary in support of the Assist program. These packages of books and games and activities will assist teachers and students in topics of self-awareness and social responsibility. Next, we have $133.10 to Amy Egan of Eagle Creek Elementary. The grant is titled Logic of English Teaching Materials for the purchase of Logic of English teaching materials to aid third grade students in learning the foundations of reading through units focusing on spelling rules, reading, and punctuation. Next, we have a $498 grant to Amy Tuckwell of Post Middle School. For a grant titled CBL2 Graphing with Technology. It's for the purchase of Vernier CBL2 sensors to assist post middle school students in producing graphs with their TI graphing calculators. Students will use the sensors to quickly create graphs to examine cause and effect. And last but not least, we have a $500 grant to Stephanie Bailey and the 7th grade ELA team at Post Middle School. All right, you can take it. Congratulations. The grant's title is 7th grade novels of BIPOC and LGBTQIA+ authors for the purchase of diverse novels by Black, Indigenous, people of color, and LGBTQIA+ authors that feature diverse characters. Purchases will include a class set of novels featuring traditionally marginalized characters so that all students will have access to books that present different perspectives of the world and the people that live in it. So congratulations to you all. Thank you. Before I step away, can we get everybody that received a grant up here and get a photo? Yeah, that'd be great. Let's do that. Wonderful.
Thank you, Kevin and Mark, and thank you to the Arlington Education Foundation for presenting tonight. This is an action item. So I need a motion from the board to approve the donation for the Arlington Education Foundation Spring Mini Grants for $9,595.70.
I make a motion that we approve the donation from the Arlington Education Foundation 2022 Spring Mini Grants.
Second.
I heard a second from Mike Ray, correct? All right, it's been
Correct.
moved and seconded to approve the Arlington Education Spring Mini Grants. And Madam Clerk, can we please call for a vote?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp,
Aye.
All right, the motion is approved and the donation is accepted. The donated funds will be deposited and put into the appropriate building budget for each grant. Thank you very much for all who applied and for helping all of our students. Next item on our agenda is the fascinating Title VI grant application for Indian education, a federal grant. And we'd like to welcome back Carrie Helgeson, and she can share anything new that we maybe still need to know, and then we're going to take a vote.
All right, thank you for welcoming me back. I am up here now to seek approval to submit the Title VI grant application for Indian education by May 13th.
All right, this is an action item. Can I get a motion from the board?
Make a motion to approve the Title VI grant application for Indian education.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the Title VI grant application for Indian education. Can we please take a vote, Madam Clerk?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
And the motion is approved and the grant is approved.
All
Thank
right,
you.
perfect. Thank you very much.
And next, we'd like to welcome our very awesome financial director, Gina Zutenhorst, with our financial outlook of our current budget.
I'll go ahead and share my screen.
And this part that you're sharing is first our financial outlook of our current budget. It's just a briefing. It's just information for us.
Exactly. So yes, I am happy to be here in the boardroom with all of you and online members as well. And here we go. So this is a standing agenda item that we have on our monthly board meeting. It aligns with when our budget and enrollment reports are on our consent agenda. So this is a place to talk about some of the highlights. If you're looking at the consent agenda, which is much more detailed report, and you can have fun looking at those numbers. Like here's some of the highlights, and I'll go into them now. Let's see if this is advancing. But you can see my screen, but the button to advance. This is doing this. But I'll do that for now.
As soon as you get ready, Ms. Gina, would you please hold the wireless mic so the people on Zoom can hear you better?
Sure.
Thank you.
Screen putting in. There we go. Okay, so we are going to start out with the financial health of the district and highlight the positives. Our 21-22 has a healthy fund balance that is helping us to sustain our operations. We have our 4-year educational programs and operations levy, which also helps strengthen the financial position of the district in its operations over the course of 4 years. We have federal funds that are providing some relief for us. ESSER 3 is $3.6 million. Department of Health Learn to Return grant is $490,000. And our CARES Act emergency connectivity funds are over $750,000, which is providing assistance for us. We also have our capital levy, which was also approved by the voters of the district at the same time as our educational programs and operations levy. So these are the positives. And we also talk about some of the challenges. So our 21-22 budget had estimated that our ending fund balance would be down to the minimum reserve level by the end of the year. We have maintained staffing levels at pre-COVID enrollment levels. So when our enrollment was higher, we staffed at that higher level. Our enrollment had dropped when we went into the pandemic, and we continued to staff at the levels that we had. We did not reduce our staff. We did that to specifically knowing that we would need to have those staff to meet student needs and accelerate student learning. Our enrollment is recovering at a slower pace than we had hoped. It is recovering. It is not just snap back to regular. It is a process, a slow process. But we also have a number of programs that are with unique needs, and they are generating costs and expenditures that are greater than the funding model associated with them. The two biggest ones that would come to mind are our special education program and our child and nutrition services program. And another challenge, we are continuing to experience costs associated with the COVID-19 pandemic that are uniquely costs we would not have if it were not for that. Our fund balance trend. This is where I will perhaps blow it up just a little. Hopefully that makes it able to be seen well enough. So for 21-22, our beginning fund balance starting off the year was 12.2 million. Our fund balance as of March is 8.2 million. So what does that mean? Well, let's provide some context. This chart provides 4 years worth of fund balance, and you can see them laid up against each other there, each of those lines, and it bounces around every month. But you can see that 18-19, there's a hot pink line. It's up at the top. This is the onset of McCleary, and our fund balance was pretty high there. And then the next year, 19-20 is the yellow line, and you can see it bounces around, but kind of follows the trend as the same as it did the year before, up during October, November, up again in April, May. That's largely due to when we received the largest amount of our tax revenues, the personal property taxes that is passed through from the county to us. So that's why you see that bump up during those times. It follows that trend in each of the years. 2021 is the, I'll call it turquoise or light blue. It is starting to follow along the same trend, but it's starting to dip down. And in 21-22, you can see we're starting to level out, but we are still kind of in the lower side of over the past 4 years. That is definitely just showing us that that's where we're headed. We are still above our minimum reserve fund balance. We are still healthy, but we are very much paying attention to where we're at as far as sustainability of our operations across multiple years. And I thought I was advancing without much trouble, but now when I push the button, oh, it doesn't go. So my apologies. I'll make it work. So here are some other highlights and information. We talked about our local tax revenues. To date, we have received about 4.6 million out of the 9 million that is budgeted for tax revenues that we would be receiving during the 21-22 school year. As of March, about 4.6 million of the 9. So we'll be receiving another large influx of those dollars in April. Expenditures as of March are 95% of total budgeted expenditures. We have either spent the funds where the money has actually gone out the door and we've received the goods and services, or we have a purchase order, an encumbrance that is outstanding and we haven't spent it, but we have obligated it. We've said we want these things or it's on order. So that's 95% of our total budgeted expenditures is mostly spoken for. That does include the budget extensions that were approved during the March 14 board meeting. Those are reflected in our March budget reports. As part of this monthly showing of our financial highlights, I do always like to remind everyone of our federal ESSER dollars and the general spending plan for those. And so that we all know and we can recall what is it that we utilize those dollars for. And you can see that most of the green chart is taken up. 67% of that is school building instructional staff. 15% is for school building paraeducator staff. 9% was for counseling staff and social emotional supports. And then some of these smaller pie chart pieces, the red, the blue, the yellow, those are for summer schools, nursing staff, and as well as technology equipment and technology staff. Okay. And this is a picture we like to keep in our mind as well. Just where are we at on our OSPI, Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction, has a tool that they use. They have created. It has weighted scores, taking various financial factors and putting values to them. And then it sets it up there. And you can see our history is quite good. We have financial strength. 2018-19, you see 3.85 was our score. 2019 was 3.7. 2021, 3.35. We are starting to dip. I have extrapolated this tool to estimate for the current year that we're in. This current year that we're in is not on OSPI's tools, but I have used the same factors, used the same places that it gets those numbers, and came up with the 2.45. That is lower, but it is still positive. The cut score for this tool that we would be considered, or districts would be considered on financial watch, is 1.7. So we're still doing fine, but it is lower than previous years. Here's our old working forecast. I don't have a better word for it other than old, even though we're talking about our financial highlights of current budget. The fund balance is still projected to be close to the minimum by the end of 21-22. We have still showing that we would need to reduce costs in future years to stay within our minimum fund balance. But mainly what I want to show you with that is we don't want to use that chart for decision making at this juncture. It is only to forewarn of the big picture, and that we're getting potentially close to a tipping point where reductions could be necessary. There's a real desire for us to shift to looking at that next year. And we just don't have all the facts and data compiled yet to be able to give meaningful information to be able to make decisions from. We do know some of those factors, and I'll talk a little bit more about them in our next part of my presentation, the next agenda item, where we do make that shift. But quickly, next year's expenditures will be greater than planned. Next year's revenues should also be greater than planned. And we'll talk more about what those factors are that are going to create some interesting challenges for us. So that is the end of this presentation. And I will switch to the next presentation. Still sharing my screen, or do you need to?
Would this be an appropriate time to ask questions about our current budget?
It sure would.
Do any board members have any questions?
I have a quick question, Gina.
Sure.
How much longer are we anticipating ESSER funds?
We are going to have spent them by the end of this fiscal year. If there are any left, it will be probably in the range of 100,000. It would not be anything that we would be able to substantially help us.
And that will be the end of any federal funding via ESSER.
That's correct, unless something new comes. Yes. Yeah. We're done. We spent our first round in the first year it came out. Second round was last year. Third round, we are using those funds.
Any additional questions from any board members about our current budget? All right, you're next on the agenda, Gina. Just stay right there, and we're going to move into item D, our budget development briefing.
Yes, so anytime we are talking about our budget, and especially at the time that we're talking about next year's budget and bringing that all together, we want everyone to know we are keeping the district's primary mission as primary and forefront in our mind. And we use what is called a vision aligned budgeting that the board has been involved with. And our primary mission, of course, educate, prepare, and inspire students to graduate and seek their full potential as lifelong learners. Within that, the finance area, budget area, we tend to fall under strategic plan goal 3, resource stewardship, which really is a goal supporting all of the other goals within the district. But that goal particularly says we will secure quality resources, people, time, money, and property, and align these resources to support equitable learning and achievement for students by making decisions using an equity lens and data. There are some specific subset goals that are articulated. You can see them there. It's about allocating resources for maximizing student learning, maintaining and improving our buildings and equipment, and investing community resources prudently. And this is a very special slide as well. It contains the values that guide budget decisions. And these are some result of board work that was done and is embodied in board policy. And this helps kind of illustrate and show how the budget and the values that guide those budget decisions. I am going to highlight in particular, and you can see it on the screen, but I will highlight that on there, it talks about fund balance. It talks about maintaining compliance with board policy for minimum fund balance, which is important. But it also talks about allowing for flexibility in times of emergency. And specifically when we developed this into values, it was board input guiding that there might be times of emergency, and what better time than potentially in a pandemic. So I'll talk a little bit more about how that may be coming to bear as we're coming to this next year's budget. This is our budget timelines. Just remembering some of the key points that go into it. The board adopted our enrollment projection in February. March 10, the legislative session ended, and we were needing that because we need to know if they're changing anything with our funding. And now we're waiting on some of the tools. We're waiting on the processes that it requires to compile all of the numbers. If we were going to be doing a reduction in force, we would have needed to bring that board resolution to you in the normal course, would have been April 25, which is today, and I am not bringing you that. May 9 would also be in the next round, but I don't believe that we are going to have that information that is trying to tell us that we need to do that for this year. So we'll talk a little bit more about that because that's tough. Okay, so July 10, a budget draft will be brought and posted to the district website. August 8 would be when the budget hearing is held and potential adoption. This is a little bit about the budget cycle. The budget cycle, it's a year-round process. We're kind of living in both years every time. Current year, next year, and adjusting those things. So this is just a visual picture of the timeline we just talked about. And the planning that's underway for 22-23, staffing is the biggest thing. We are 86% of our expenditures are made up of our staff, of our people, and student needs and outcomes are paramount in what we do. So our analysis of our enrollment and class size, especially for grades K-3, drives our staffing targets. And we are needing to do the cost calculations to figure out what we can afford. Human Resources is busy working on that. We're still waiting for some factors that we don't know. The legislative session outcomes, we did get word that they did approve enrollment stabilization for school districts, which is great. It's 1.9 million for Arlington. That actually affects this year, 21-22. But I have it in this outlook next year's budget, because that 1.9 million is really going to actually put us in a better financial position going into next year. Something else that the legislature did, the prototypical school model allocation formulas are enhanced slightly for positions such as nursing staff, counselors, and other social, emotional, safety, and behavioral supports. It is a 3-year rollout. They increased it slightly, and they'll increase it slightly next year, and then another year to get it fully to where they approved the law to be. I do want to mention that we are actually already staffed at over what the staffing compliance model will say for that. Nevertheless, the needs are great and they are there. So we are still evaluating the needs and if we would be able to add. So the revenue estimates, what is impacting those, and the tool that we needed from OSPI just came out on Friday. So I got in there and poked in all the numbers that I had pulled together ready to go, but it wasn't in time for me to have that for digestion today. So I'll just mention that it incorporates a 5.5% increase from the legislature. But alongside that, regionalization decreases from 16 to 15%. So we will be receiving more revenues, but at a bit of a lesser rate. And the prototypical school model adjustments that I just mentioned with the staffing, and then the federal ESSER funds they will be no more, they will be depleted. And also to mention and make it part of our reality, the federal waivers for the school lunch programs will be ended. So we have been enjoying the benefits of providing free meals for all students, and that is unfortunately not going to be part of next year. Awareness of the big picture. Our expenditures will be greater than planned. Our revenues will be greater than planned. Our expenditures will exceed our revenues. They'll both be more, but our expenditures are going to be greater. And that's where our budgeted ending fund balance will be impacted. So we're just preparing for that. How much? We don't know that yet. So I'm being a little facetious including this picture because we are probably going to be dipping down below our minimum fund balance for 22-23. That is important to sustain our operations and instructional programs targeting accelerated learning for 22-23 rather than a formal reduction in staff at this juncture, even though expenditures will exceed revenues. But we will be able to make adjustments as we're going to get us back to where we need to be. Going into more of the technical picture of next steps for the budget, just the jargon that is used around the budget. The required budget format is called the Form F-195, and there's also a 4-year budget required, and that would be called Form F-195F. We're working on those. Drafts will be brought to the board for review and consideration as soon as possible. As I mentioned, we're still waiting on factors, but it absolutely does have to be in a draft format for the board to consume and for the public to consume. We'll post it on the July 10 on our district website, and then it comes also to the board during the July 11 board meeting. But and then it also goes for review from the Northwest ESD Educational Service District, and then it will come to the board for consideration of adoption and public hearing at the August 8 board meeting. It has to be adopted, a budget has to be adopted by law by August 31st. So I don't have a questions slide, but this is the spot.
I have a question, and I'm just curious, and I don't know if you know yet, but I'm curious about that new prototypical model allocation where the state says we can have more nurses and counselors. And as you've explained many times, we already provide that with our local levy dollars. do we know how this will impact us? How many nurses will it pay for? Will it change how we ask for local levy dollars in the future? Are we still going to be super far behind?
I think we're still super far behind because if there's a compliance tool that it shows what the prototypical, and it's staffing units. It's not dollar for dollar, it's staffing units. So for example, it may staff us for a 1 FTE of a nurse. The prototypical difference is a fraction. It wouldn't be a large difference in the increase. And we are still over by at least 4 FTE between all the different kinds of positions. So if that helps provide, I don't think it was a large, but it's a step in the right direction. And the conversations around why those needs were, and the teams that were together to press those needs and talk about it, this is a step in the right direction. So.
Okay, thank you, Gina. Any other questions from any board members or student advisors? Director Nat.
Hi, Gina. I guess I'm just wondering if it's an eventuality that we're going to have to talk about reductions in staff.
I don't know. It seems like I'm always saying we might, it's out there. It's the next year. It's the next year. But then when we get to the next year, there's been enough change and enough increase in staff. There's been enough factors that influence where we haven't needed to, but we have also had our fund balance, and that was higher than the minimum would require that we have set. So that fund balance is getting eaten away. So I don't know. It seems like it is the job of the finance person to say that the sky is falling, and it may not happen, but we have to warn. So yeah,
thank you.
Director Ray or Director Kingman, do you have any questions about our budget from Gina?
No, I don't have any questions at this time. Thanks for asking. I just been diligently watching and waiting, hoping that things stay the same or improve slightly would be helpful.
Yeah.
All right, thank
Thanks.
you, Gina. We appreciate your thoughtful insight and your crystal ball reading. We really appreciate all that you do, and the wisdom of our past leaders that have had that large fund balance that has sustained us through this difficult time. And we don't take it for granted. We appreciate all that you do. Thank you. Next on our agenda is really exciting boilers. We're going to hear from Brian Lewis to talk about the contract for the installation of the new boilers at Camp Prairie Elementary. So good evening, Brian, our Executive Director of Operations. We are enthralled.
You might change your tune after you see me struggle with this technology up here.
Do you need to phone a friend?
I do. Mark, can I get your help here? I need to connect my computer to the display. Is that? Oh, that's it? Oh, easy.
For those of you who had technological difficulties on your bingo punch card.
There we go.
There you go.
Hey. I am redeemed. Thank you. Good evening, directors. Brian Lewis, Executive Director of Operations for Arlington Public Schools. Tonight, I'm bringing to you a request to approve a contract with Bretonia Mechanical for installation of boilers at Camp Prairie Elementary. In February 2020, Arlington School District voters approved a capital levy. Among the projects funded by the levy is the installation of new boilers at Camp Prairie Elementary School. The school is currently equipped with a single boiler, which is operating, but exhibiting signs of wear and tear associated with aging. It's the original installation from 1993. The project will include the installation of 2 new boilers that will replace the current single boiler, In addition to extending the useful life of the building, 2 new boilers will provide redundant heating capacity for the building in the event one of the boilers fails. This double boiler configuration will match the same configuration installed at Eagle Creek Elementary School. The district conducted a small works roster bid process to receive bids on the project. Ultimately, 2 bids were received. Britonia Mechanical of Paulsville, Washington was determined the lowest responsive bidder at the conclusion of the bid process. This is only for the installation. This contract is only for the installation of the boilers. We purchased the boilers separately in February. We have received those boilers. They're in our warehouse waiting installation. Attached to the board plate were 2 documents, a recommendation from McGranahan Architects endorsing Britonia's credentials in their bid, and then a contract, a contract template for the work itself. I do have a customized template with the blank spaces filled in that I received today. The budget for the work is $214,000 plus sales tax. Insufficient funds are held in the capital projects fund to support the project cost. I wanted to give you some more detail on the project costs in the budget. And you can see that on the screen up here. The original budget for the HVAC work, heating, ventilation, cooling at Kent Prairie Elementary was $571,494. The boilers are $62,500. The installation is $214,000. That leaves $294,994 to finish the HVAC improvements at Kent Prairie, which is the installation of control devices on the HVAC system throughout the building. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
My quick question, Brian, is how soon would we be looking for installation of those boilers?
So installation is scheduled to begin on June 26th and be complete prior to the start of school in September, where we have a substantial completion date of August 26th. I think this work is probably going to proceed a little more quickly than some of our other projects, and it should be completed well before substantial completion date.
Any other board members have any further questions? This is an action item. Do we have a motion to approve the contract for installation of new boilers at Kent Prairie Elementary?
I make a motion that we approve the contract for installation of new boilers at Kent Prairie Elementary.
I could second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the contract for installation of the new boilers at Kent Prairie Elementary. Madam Clerk, can we please take a vote?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion is approved and the contract can also move forward. Thank you, Brian. We
Thank
look
you.
forward to Kent Prairie having its boilers installed. Next up on our agenda is a course title change, Math for Life. And we're going to welcome our principal.
Yes, I'm going to be presenting for Arlington High School tonight, along with a course title change. So Math for Life is one of our current special education courses. Our seniors take it, and it serves their math minutes. It's also a fourth year of math for a lot of our students, which prohibits a lot of our seniors from taking additional electives if they're served in math for IEPs. So we are proposing to change that course title to Career Prep and Financial Literacy. Not only is the connotation way better, if you ever need a lesson on connotation, I'm your lady, let me tell you. But for our seniors, we're going to provide special education services in math and ELA. So if they're served in one or the other, doesn't matter. We now have a place for them. Our previous issue was that we could not serve our special education students in their ELA minutes their senior year in a co-taught English class. So yet another elective opportunity taken away from our seniors. Now, because with all of our senior options, there's just not a way to get a co-taught teacher in there and give students choice. So this way we're able to serve them in their minutes. They could also be taken an additional English class that they're interested in for their senior year. We are going to support their financial and technical writing for resumes, cover letters, pieces like that we're already working with our seniors on. Just adds that minute component per their IEPs. They can also get math or English credit now for this course, whatever they need for their graduation pathway. And if we are able to open this up, which I hope you'll all approve it tonight. They now have a lot more access to the supports that are already written into their IEPs. So those barriers to success, boom, knocking those down. Okay. We're talking about the sky being the limit. We're past that with this. Okay. We're opening it up for our kiddos. So that's what we're asking for approval for tonight from Arlington High School. And our fabulous Kyla Gaskins will be teaching this class. I know she'd welcome you to visit at any time. She's the best.
I'm sorry, Marilee, can you remind me of the name of the course change again?
It's going to be career prep and financial literacy.
And what kind of math do you do with that?
We have a math curriculum that's already established and used in there, and I'm forgetting Dave Ramsey. We use that math curriculum, and that's been established and used for several years in that class. So it's really establishing the ELA component is kind of our next step. You're welcome. Other questions for me?
Do any of our student advisors have any questions about a course title change? No?
It sounds better though, doesn't it? Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Ms.
All right.
Herman.
Thank you.
This is an action item. Do I have a motion to approve the course title change?
I can move that we approve the course title change, Math for Life.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the course title change, Math for Life. Can we take a vote?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion is approved and that new name is adopted. Next on the agenda is a new high school course, our English acquisition. And we'd like to introduce Carl Olson and guests. Kim, this must be Kim, to present our new high school English acquisition course.
Good evening. Yes, I'm Carl Olson, Director of Categorical Programs, and
my name is Kim Contreras, and I'm the EL teacher at Arlington High School.
And she's simply awesome. I'll just add that to it. So we are here to introduce to you 2 courses and corresponding materials with one of them. And so what our plan will be is, after a brief introduction, talking about how we got to this point, we'll be sharing the English acquisition course and the corresponding materials, then taking a break to give you a chance to vote on each of those, and then sharing the transitional English course, which does not have any corresponding new materials involved. So we'll kind of just go through that process for you.
So I'll give you a little bit of background for you and maybe some of the language that you may be unfamiliar with. So our English language courses are for our English language learners who are students who have come to us from other countries, first languages, not English. The one that we're particularly talking about, the curriculum, is for our newcomers. So newcomers are students who have had less than 2 years in the United States. I have been doing this in some capacity since 2006. And in the last 3 years, we have seen a dramatic increase in students coming to us with very limited, if any, English. In the past, what we have done is put them in their grade level English class. So if we have a 10th grade student from China, they go to English 10 and they read Fall of the House of Usher. So we're still learning, you know, my name is, and this is where I'm from. And so that's kind of where we have been. They have had support. We've continued to support them in that. It just wasn't what was best for students as far as what they needed. So our other thing that we were doing was then having them come and have an English class. But here's where the trouble at the high school is that they weren't getting English credit. So for the first 2 years when these newcomers were here and they were just kind of learning the school system and learning the language and learning to read, in English, they were not getting high school credit, which then prolonged their time because they needed 4 years of English credit. So the proposal that we're talking about today is for those newcomers, and so that they can actually receive English credit in their first years at the high school.
As part of this process, we engaged early in the year with Northwest ESD and their experts, and then they helped connect us with Everett School District staff. We were looking for a model that was close by that we could access that currently was offering credit for these types of courses at the high school level and had been doing so successfully along with having materials that matched. So I want to give some credit to those people because they really helped us formulate what we've done here. So our first course is the English acquisition course. And as Kim shared, this is designed for newcomers. Now, this particular course will be for our students who typically would be coming from another country first year. This does not necessarily mean, though, that they would take this course as we take what's called the WIDA assessment. New students take a screener, and the screener would help determine if they were at a level 1 or 2, so those beginning levels, and would thus need this course. We have had students before who come from another country but already have enough English skills where they wouldn't need this type of support. So we added 2 different layers to determine who would need this. There would be 1 English credit for them, and this would be a 1-period class all year long. Should they receive other English credits due to their own interests or work that they have done, this could change to an elective credit depending on their work with the counselor. Our goal of this course is to prepare them for English 9. Now, you'll hear a little bit more about this, but it's for English 9 with support. So we might have a student who comes in at a 10th grade level, then receives the English acquisition course, and then in 11th grade would be in English 9. But again, we're trying to make sure they have the appropriate amount of rigor and can be successful. The other parts about this course is combining both knowledge of English and building English language skills with accessing content that meets standard with Common Core standards. So we're really trying to balance 2 sets of standards, the WIDA standards, which is our state adopted English language framework, as well as Common Core standards. Another aspect that we want to do, we are currently both taking some sessions. We have another one on Thursday about newcomers with the ESD. And we are also trying to make sure we can build in the necessary social emotional supports for these students. They come from many different areas. We're preparing for possible family members of some of our Ukrainian family members coming here. We want to make sure that we're providing that 3rd layer of support, which having this kind of that homeroom feel. Kim is outstanding at building relationships and making sure to meet those needs within this work also. And then the final piece along with that is to help them adapt to different cultures, both our culture as well as the high school culture. It's amazing. Kim would find a student who played a certain instrument, that student's in band within 2 days. So trying to find ways to connect them while also getting used to different aspects of our culture. So I will stop there in terms of that is the course to see if you have any questions about the course itself before I share about the materials. Okay, appropriate pause, appropriate wait time. So the next piece for this course was to find materials that would be appropriate, that would focus on both learning English, but within the framework of learning those Common Core standards. We decided on the EDGE curriculum. Here's a copy of the textbook right here. And we chose the EDGE fundamentals, which is the first level for, it could be used for both high school and middle school, should we ever expand this. Some districts do try to do fundamentals and level A within the same year. We are choosing to stick with fundamentals and also make sure we can address some of those social emotional needs to make sure that those kids are really solid moving forward. This particular curriculum is used extensively. It is also used at the Everett School District. We looked at both the Common Core standard connections as well as the WIDA. WIDA has their own protocol for examining materials to make sure that they meet English standards, and this met every criteria. And so that was a key part for us to make sure we're following along with that. It's accessible to our newcomers. There'll be some work, of course, with language building at the beginning of the course, but then they'll be able to access this. And there's also your typical reading handbook, writing handbook, and a vocabulary glossary with pictures that are very age appropriate that are in the back part of this. So wanted to make sure it has some of those supports with that. The nice thing about this adoption, it might be one of the cheaper ones that you'll ever hear about. The total initial cost is $3,656 and a few cents. We're looking at purchasing for between 14 and 15 students initially. So we have enough materials. And then the annual cost for replacing workbooks is $266. Granted, there may be some, if we keep growing in the number of students who need to access this course. Also, we've also reached out to Weston to make sure they know about the availability in case we need to connect with them and get some further materials. This does include, though, teacher materials for both buildings so that we can offer that. So any questions on materials?
Carl, I was curious if there's a component that is via the internet. Is there anything that the students can use online, at home, et cetera?
There is, and plus we will be still continuing them with Rosetta Stone for some of the English language building. But because of that, for now, we're choosing to go with some of the paper print because of the amount of online things that the kids are going to be coming into in their other classes, and then determine if we need to add some of those pieces as we go. So, but yes, there will be the availability to expand to many different resources, as you can imagine, if needed.
Yeah, I just was thinking about from a family perspective, sometimes you might have a parent that can access the, if the student is with the book or a workbook, then you could have someone online, and just seems like it would be a nice, it's just inclusive, I think. But
Right.
I agree with you. I like having something hardbound, and they're certainly going to be layered with those other options and the other courses. Thanks.
Yep, we'll add a textbook to their book bags for them. All right, any other questions? Okay, so I'll stop there for voting process, and then we'll introduce our last course.
All right, this is an action item. Can we get a motion to approve the new high school English acquisition course and the new instructional materials?
I make a motion that we approve the new high school English acquisition course and instructional materials.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the new high school English acquisition course and the new instructional materials. Madam Clerk, can we please take a vote?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion is approved and the new course and materials are approved. Thank you. With no further ado, can you please tell us about the new high school transitional English course?
So this next item is, we don't need curriculum for it, so we're just asking the board's approval for the course. And this would be the second layer, and oh my goodness, got a little nervous. Thank you. All these new names. We're calling it the Transitional English Program. And what that would entail, this would be the second level of that. So after a year, maybe two, depending on the WSWETA scores, we would transition the students into an English 9 course. So they would be in the general education classroom. And then after that general education classroom, they would immediately come back to me for support. And that class would be only to support them in the English curriculum that they're receiving in their gen ed support. That is different than the other class where they're getting help with social studies or science or any of those other things. So this would specifically be just to support them in their English 9 class. The reason why we don't need materials is that Pearson has a really good program that coordinates with the material and the curriculum that's being used in the gen ed classes. So I would be using that, which is already available to us, and we'll get to utilize that. So when they are reading The Fall of the House of Usher, they can read it with me together at a leveled text. So we're reading at a different level, and we're still doing some of those activities. So that would be the second level of course for these English language learners.
So any questions?
I don't hear any questions. And this is another action item. Do we have a motion to approve the new high school transitional English course?
I can move that we approve the new high school course, Transitional English.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the new high school transitional English course. The English is hard to speak. Can we take a vote, please?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly.
Aye.
Director Kingman.
Aye.
President Levesque.
Aye.
Director Nat.
Aye.
Thank you. That course is now approved. Next up, we're going to have a lengthy but very enjoyable presentation for new instructional materials. We've got a few different things on this agenda. We're going to hear from Carrie Henderson Burke and Jay Shalati.
Lengthy perhaps, but extremely efficiently managed. So don't worry, but we are going to be talking about 7 different textbooks for 7 different social studies courses at Arlington High School. I will introduce to you Jay Shalati when he comes up. He is the chair of the social studies department, and he was deeply involved in the work of adopting these. What I want to prepare you for is Jay's going to talk a little bit about the overall process, because there are 7 different courses that we're looking at and 7 different texts, but all were managed in the same process, right? So he'll overview the process for you, the criteria that we looked at in making the selections themselves, and the reasons behind the selections. So there's your outline for Jay's talk.
Thank you, Carrie. Wonderful. Good times. Thank you. You know, this has been a surprisingly fun meeting. I was shocked how much I was into the boiler by the end of that. I was really into it. That was great. Gary, right side, please. Oh, yeah, look right there. I just want to take a moment here before we start to congratulate Mayor Lee, who's going to be an excellent principal of our school. I'm very excited about that. And to acknowledge Kyle Schroeder, who's the greatest human being I've ever met in my entire life. And the recommendation I'd like to make to the board right now is ignore my presentation and get to work on that wonderful letter recommendation you need to do for him. And then he deserves that later, more than I deserve your time. That being said, though, I'm here, so let's get started. We are here to introduce new curriculum for high school social studies. The first question is, why would we even do that? Well, here's the first one. Carrie, how often should we do a curriculum adoption? 7 years would be a great one. We're at 15 years. We've blown right by that. I believe if you're going to go big. Last time we did all of our adoption from the same publisher. It was Prentice Hall. They're now called Savas. Different people have argued how you say that name. I'm sticking with Savas. Don't challenge me. I have the microphone. I guess you all have microphones, don't you? Never mind. Another one, this hurts us in 2022, is the online licenses for our Prentice Hall books expired 8 years ago. So, you know, it's a crime against education, but we're making up for it tonight. And the textbooks, just being 15 years old, are falling apart and things can be updated. People sometimes, I think, falsely think that you don't need to update a history book because the Civil War didn't change. But there's great need, and there's always need for that type of thing. So we're seeking approval for 7 new curriculum resources: World History, AP European History, which are sophomore classes, US History, a junior class, and the rest are for seniors: Government, AP Government, Psychology, and Economics. We have an AP US History class, but that resource is updated pretty recently, a couple years ago, so we're not looking to do that. And our 2 other classes, Global Studies, doesn't use a textbook. I'm just going to keep on rolling here. If you have a question, you can interrupt me anytime. There's time for questions at the end, but it's no big deal. So what was the process? Carrie alluded to this process we went through, and that is an important thing, I think, to understand. The first thing is the social studies team got 3 or 4 books for each subject, and those teams went through them. So the World History PLC plowed through all these world history. We spent about 2 months doing this, went through all of them, and then all the other teams. And through that process, they narrowed it down to the 2 we liked the most of the 3 or 4 that we previously had. From those 2, we then took some very lucky Arlington High School students who were very upset when they learned what we were doing, and we made them read portions of those books and fill out a questionnaire that I made. That was actually really, it looked like a real questionnaire, didn't it? Let's not get excited here, but it's pretty good. And they filled that out, and then we had 2 parent meetings. The first one wasn't that well attended, but Carrie brought a ton of cookies. And the second one, over 20 people came, and Carrie brought no cookies, so figure that. And and in that meeting, parents had a chance to, well, the second meeting was about 2 hours long, I think. People came and looked at them, we did a little presentation, talked about them, got wonderful feedback from the community, what they thought about the books. And then based on those things, recommendations were made for a single resource for all 7 classes. So the question now is, what were we looking for when we did all this? Here are the principles. The first one is you have to understand a textbook is a survey. It never goes into super great detail. There's always a kid in my class who watches History Channel all day long and knows more about the Union war strategy than Ulysses S. Grant did. They just got it all. They know everything that's going on. And they're like, how come the book doesn't mention this? I'm like, because it's got to cover 300 years of stuff. So oftentimes people want to look at it and go, well, why does the book mention this? Oh, it barely touches that. Well, it's a survey. So imagine having to explain your life in 5 minutes. You might miss some really important things, but I got married. Well, what about that marriage? I got married. What more do you want from me? We're moving on. So there's another important thing is the textbook is not the curriculum. The textbook is a resource to the curriculum. The teachers are the curriculum, right? We teach lots of stuff that maybe isn't in the book that much. We're controlling that. We don't just go the book by the numbers, right? And so as say here, the second bullet, if you have a favorite historical topic, there's a good chance it doesn't go in as depth as you want. And that's why when kids go to college, they can take an entire class in the roaring 20s if they want and just learn about it till their head explodes. We're not going to do that here. It's a survey. And then again, textbooks are resources, not the full curriculum. So here are the main things we look for. The first one is readability. We have to look at this we have to be reasonable. If I had to teach a sophomore world history class, beginning of the year, these kids are all 15 years old. Now I'm going to say, now you sit down tonight and you read this for half an hour. That is not a fair expectation for most sophomores I know. And so the first thing is the textbook something they can actually read? Because you can have a textbook where the reading level, the words are not that hard, and yet it's still hard to read by how it's worded. It's shocking how different they can be. And so that was the first thing to me is if a kid is going to open my book and 2 minutes in just quit because they're just reading gobbledygook, we don't want that. The second one is voice. And this is part of the readability. Some textbooks read harshly like an encyclopedia, and others have voice. And by voice, I mean like the author's voice. They're not interjecting their comments all the time. It's pretty much just fact-based all the way through, but there's style in the writing that is engaging. I think one of the parents said she could curl up to that book and read it. She was obviously lying, but that was a great thing for her to say. She was going to curl up with that world history book and just read it for hours. That was just great. The next one is unbiased, right? We are not reading books here trying to tell our kids what to think. We're telling them information, and then they decide what to think for themselves. As a teacher, particularly as a teacher teaching U.S. government, my job is to explain to them what's going on, maybe be devil's advocate to agree on all sides so they can understand, and then they make their own decisions. It's not my job to go, and then clearly you should vote for it. That's just not what we do, and we don't want the books to do that either. Organization. This is another readability thing. Can the kids find stuff? Obviously, we would probably all like it if the kids just sat down and read the whole book from cover to cover and loved it. But what they're doing is hunting and pecking for the answers. And maybe it's wrong to help them do that. But since it's what they're doing, having a heading is good. They can kind of know where they're going, right? Kyle, you've never done that, have you? We'll talk about that tomorrow. The next one is academic diversity. Does a textbook support a variety of learning levels and languages? So based on the presentation we just heard, all these have audio books, the online resource. Is there a Spanish online? But is that there? Yeah, and yes, there are for all the ones we picked. Are those there? Is it accessible to all learners? And then finally, of course, the content. Does it hit all the things that the state of Washington and the Arlington School District wants us to talk about? Any questions on this particular? This is the most horrible slide I've ever made in my life. It's all words. It's a disgusting green color in the back there. Does anyone have any questions about any of this? What we're looking for? Oh. All right. So we're going to break down the actual things we picked. Instead of conveniently like 15 years ago going all with Prentice Hall, we ended up getting it from 3 different publishers because we picked the books we really liked. And for some, this publisher we thought nailed it. And then the other one, we were like, oh, because even within one company, different people are writing these books, right? It's not the same team doing them all. And so it could be for Savas in this particular one, like here we have world history and US history. We like that one the best. And then their government one, we're like, oh, good swing, but maybe not what we wanted. And so here are some particular strengths we thought were found in the Savas books. And that was readability, which is one of the most important things. The online resources were good and easy to manage and had the resources we're looking for. The format was well done. It seems silly to mention things like good pictures, but here's a soul crushing thing. when you're reading an AP history book and you turn the page and one side is 2 columns with no pictures and the other page is 2 columns, it just crushes you. I know, because when I started teaching AP US history, I read the book over the summer. And there were a couple of times on my couch, I almost teared up because I turned the page, and went, I can't do it. This is over. We're done. I don't want a 16-year-old have to do that either. So the classes we want from Savas are world history, which is for sophomores. It's a 1-credit year-long class. It goes from the Renaissance to modern times. US history is a 1-credit class for juniors, which goes from Reconstruction of the Civil War to modern times. And then economics, which is a semester class for seniors, covering just the basic principles, intro to economics. And then we have BFW publishers. These guys really focus on AP books. And so other ones had AP books, but it just turned out these guys know what they're doing with AP. And honestly, with the regular textbooks, the gen ed books, we probably could have picked any publisher and it wouldn't have made that much of a difference. It was almost exclusively on our preference. But when it comes to the AP books, there was tremendous difference. Some of those books were written for like college seniors, clearly. And I'm like, no, the kid in my AP US history class is 16 when they start. I can hardly understand this book. I'm sitting there with Mr. Keeley, the other guy who teaches US history, and we're reading this book out loud together to see what it is. And I'm like, I don't know what you just said. He goes, I'm not sure if I know what I said either. So we threw that one out. And we found ones we think really do that well. So again, the BFW publishers, they specialize in high school AP books. So they know their whole goal is, I'm giving you college level stuff for a 15, 16, 17-year-old kid. And that's a gift to do that. That's not easy to do. AP European History is worth 2 credits. It's a year-long class, but because it's college and the high school, we're 10 credits through that. So we're 2 credits at the high school. And then AP US Government is a semester class for seniors, but it's a full credit again because of college and the high school. And the AP European History class is interchangeable with World History. So a sophomore either takes World History or the advanced class, and they cover the same credit through the school. And AP Government covers the same as the regular government class, but it's worth more credit. And then the last one was HMH. And for these ones with government and psychology, those not being history classes, what was really important with these is how they updated the content. I noticed some of the books, and we had some of these, when you inherit a classroom, sometimes there's just random textbooks on the shelf that you just never touch and they stay there for years. And I found some books that were from the original one. I was like, they didn't change anything. They put in some new pictures. This is just the exact same book. I'm going paper. What? These guys aren't even trying. But these ones, they updated their resources, right? It makes sense. The Donald Trump and Barack Obama presidencies are mentioned. These are important things to have. And in fact, even the US government, Joe Biden, I think even makes a mention right at the very end there, is that we're getting current here. And that's important because, books don't age well, do they? It's pretty rough when you're using a book that's 15 years old and the book is talking about Reagan all day long. And these guys have to remember who the Gipper even is. You got to tell them about that. They haven't heard of him. And then finally, psychology, just an introduction of basic psychology. And that's the one we like for that. That is the whole presentation. But Carrie is here to answer all the questions you have, and I can answer questions too. Any questions for us? We love to answer. You guys actually pay me to answer questions. So let's just do it here. I know it's after hours, so we can try. Yeah, Sherry.
Do you have a question? So they look like very meaty textbooks. Are the students taking them home often, or is there an online component that they use at home? I know Stallin's had something where there was textbooks in class and then.
So all the books, so we're doing a little interesting with how we purchase them. We're probably not going to purchase a solid book for every single kid. It's a little bit cheaper if you get just the online. And since every kid has a Chromebook, the kids like reading, most kids like reading on their Chromebook. And if a kid wants to use a book, we'll have them, but we're not going to buy, for the sophomore class next year. I think at Arlington High School, we're planning around 500-ish kids. We're not going to have 500 books because most of them will choose the online resource. So that's what we'll do there, but every class will have a class set. The way we do it, with the exception of the AP courses, the other classes use the textbook, honestly, pretty sparingly. We're going for this thing we want you to learn there. They're not getting homework out of those books like every night. And so I tell kids, even the AP class, you get your book, you take it home and you leave it there. We never do book work, right? There's stuff to be read, but it should stay there. And so, yeah, we don't want kids coming back and forth with the big books all day. That's terrible. Good question.
Thank you.
Other questions? Mary, you got a question. What do you got for me, Mary?
Which is your favorite book and what is your favorite class to teach?
Which is my favorite book? Oh my goodness. My favorite book is the AP European History book because the current one we have is horrible and I hate it. So that was the biggest improvement of them all, I think. A lot of them, they're just being like updated, like you have to update the software in your computer, like, wow, my world's better now. Like it didn't make a difference. But in that one, I feel like it actually is a pretty big night and day difference. And I'm going to spend all summer redoing everything they do with the book. So that's going to be a hassle, but I'm actually kind of excited about it. And favorite class to teach, there is no favorite, Carrie, or I love them all. Mary, don't make me decide.
Shalati, it's Mike Ray.
Oh, hey.
Hey, yeah, I'm behind you there. I just, my kids and all the other students talk so much about you. I'm so excited that, I got to have a class by you finally. And I'd love to have you come back each and every meeting to update us on.
Thank you. I'm afraid this is a one-time deal. I only come when you guys buy stuff for me. So if you got anything else in mind, I'll come back.
Well, maybe we'll just buy one set of books, a meeting for the next.
Oh, that was a power move right there.
Look at
That's
that.
why he's on the school board right there. That's a good.
Thank you for that, all that awesome work. I'm excited for the new curriculum for everybody.
You're welcome. Thank you. Other questions?
I was hoping our student advisors might have some really thoughtful insights
Yeah, Madeline,
about
you've been awfully quiet
curriculum.
over there. What do you got for me?
Never took your class. I don't know you very
that's
well,
fine.
but
You now know I'm a bully, though. That's what just happened. Yeah,
well,
okay, I'm
just
sorry.
a little bit. I mean, I'm just kind of sitting over here. I know the books that we have right now for the history classes are very well, I would say, loved.
Yes.
I don't, well, loved, more like used very wellly. So this is amazing. I know I won't get the chance to use it, unfortunately.
That's a tragedy.
I know.
That's a
It's such a
tragedy.
bummer. What you were saying before about when you open up a page and then you just see, just lines and rows of just words. And I mean, even students when they are teenagers, I mean, pictures are a great thing. They need to be shown way more. And I feel like it's kind of a overseen thought of, you don't need pictures anymore. You're not in elementary school. And pictures truly do help imagination. I mean, just putting together the words with the actual time period and just the thoughts. And so I think that's really great. And that these books are showing that, and specifically just how they're new. And I really hope that everyone else loves it as much as they smell new. I mean, I love new books. So
It's almost,
that's
almost
great.
as a new car, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, the problem with a lot of textbook is they're written by people who usually have one type of intelligence. Right? These are academic type of reading so their books are sometimes focused on their one way they learn, and most people are not that way. Like I'm not that way. I prefer the movie if we got one. And so it's nice to do that. Well, thank you, everyone. Kyle can ask me later, unless you got a question now, Kyle. Oh, Kyle's all good. All right, Carrie, do you want the microphone? No, okay. All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Shalati. Carrie, we're going to go through these one at a time and improve each item one at a time. Does anybody have any further questions before we take a motion, lots of motions?
Just by way of information, you have the proposal paperwork that we will be spending less than is written because bless the social studies team, they were willing to say we don't need a textbook for every kid. So the prices that you're seeing are a textbook and an online license for each student. So it will be markedly less, which makes everybody happy.
That's really good news. Okay, the first instructional material for this section is our world history. So can we please get a motion to approve the new instructional materials for world history?
And make a motion, we approve the instructional materials for world history.
Second. It's been moved and seconded to approve the new instructional materials for world history. Clerk?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
That motion is approved. Next item is our new instructional materials for United States history. Can we get a motion to approve the new instructional materials for United States history?
Make a motion, we approve the new instructional materials for United States history.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the new instructional materials for United States history. Clerk, can we take a vote?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
Next up is our new instructional materials for economics. Can I get a motion to approve the new instructional materials for economics?
I make a motion, we approve the instructional materials for economics.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the new instructional materials for economics. Clerk, can we please take a vote?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
The economics materials are approved. Next up, we have our AP European History. Can I get a motion to approve the new instructional materials for AP European History?
Make a motion, we approve the new instructional materials for AP European history.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the new instructional materials for AP European History. Madam Clerk, please take a vote.
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
It's been approved for the new instructional materials for AP European History. Next up, we have our AP US Government and Politics. Can I get a motion to approve those new instructional materials?
I make a motion, we approve the instructional materials for AP US Government and Politics.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the new instructional materials for AP US Government and Politics. Can we take a vote?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
The AP US Government and Politics are approved. Next up, we have our new instructional materials for government. Can we please have a motion?
Make a motion, we approve the new instructional materials for government.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the new instructional materials for government. Madam Clerk, can we please take a vote?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
Thank you. That is also approved. Next up is our new instructional materials for psychology. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion, we approve the new instructional materials for psychology.
I second.
Madam Clerk, can we please take a vote?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
The new instructional materials for psychology are approved. And with that, that concludes all of the Carrie Henderson Burke list. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll bring anybody a bottle of water who needs one after all
Thank
of
you.
this.
And thank you, Jay Shalati, for that wonderful, engaging presentation. I feel like we're all missing out on some really fun instruction in high school. Next up, we have another item on our new business. We have our academic and student well-being plan, and that will be presented by Dr. Sweeting. I just want to say today it's been the perfect date. It hasn't been too hot or too cold, and all you need is a light sweater.
Good evening. Tonight I'm going to share some information about us moving forward, and it's towards the end of the presentation. First, I wanted to share information from the Dr. Spitter's meeting that we had last Tuesday, April 19th. This chart that you see right here he shared this with us, and it's the chart that they're using as far as making decisions about if we need to move into a different space, like if we need to wear masks again or those kinds of things. So they're using the concept of low, medium, or high. And what determines that is the number of cases. So over here, it's either fewer than 200 or more than 200. And the indicators in here have to do with admissions and hospitalizations. So percent of staff inpatient beds. So those are the indicators. And you can see over here that what if we move right now where that blue square is, that's where we live right now. That's where our, as a community, as a our COVID rates right now and the levels with the indicators is low. But what Dr. Spitter said is if we moved into medium range, then there'd be talk about would additional restrictions need to be put in place. The next slide is the rates in our county, Snohomish County, and this is one that was on their site last week. I looked last night, it hadn't been changed, but as you can see, it's looking great. It is looking great. This is our district numbers. This is as of last Friday, so district-wide 18 positives. But the good news is on the next slide, they're spread out. So it's not in one location. So as you can see, there is not a location where there's more than 5. So we don't put that on there if it's more than less than 5. Next, I wanted to state that the Department of Health made a decision recently that student vaccinations for attending school next fall are not required. They did not approve that. It's not approved. This next slide is the moving forward, and it's really, to me, it's saying something. If you notice at the beginning of the arrow, the people are spread apart. And as they get closer to the point of the arrow, they're getting closer together. So the next couple slides indicate us moving forward. So recently we had the Arlington High School senior dinner dance. It was wonderful. And it was moving forward. We're coming closer together. The students were bowling, the students were dancing, the students were sitting at the same table eating together. And I know Maddie were you there, Maddie? It was awesome. I guess I didn't see you, but it was wonderful. Did you have anything you want to share with us about it?
Sure. Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, the food was great. And I think just the fact that the student class had something that was theirs in a way, and we could all be together, and there was no judgment. There was no negativity there. It felt like everyone was there celebrating, conjugating with each other, and it felt normal, and that makes me really happy to say that.
That's moving forward. It was almost, everyone was almost perfect. So when I looked around the room, it was like so perfect and just peaceful, but fun and joyful. And it was wonderful in every sense of the word. The next slide is a picture of what took place at Weston recently, which is a drive-in movie. It was awesome. It was another coming together of doing things that we couldn't do really during the shutdown and things. But the Weston team, Andrea and her team, they've been awesome. And this is really a great example of moving forward and bringing a community together. And I know that people, they had students from middle school attend, high school, and so forth. It was great. The next one is, this was mentioned already tonight, but I have the slide for it, Stillaguamish tribe at Kent Prairie with 4th graders. And you can see, look at all those 4th graders sitting together. And that's moving forward. And it also is also demonstrates other things, is that our partnership with the Stillaguamish tribe is vibrant and alive, and we're going to keep working on that so that we can grow together and learn together. And you can see Sam Barr, who is over on the left side. He's behind him. You can see that they were writing some language up on the whiteboard, so they were teaching the students some language, and so that was pretty spectacular. So moving forward. And that's it. And there's some colorful question marks.
Not really a question, more of a statement, but I wanted to say that the just school district in general, this past week has really felt like we are moving forward. I was walking into school the other day and I had like a little brain fart. I was like, where's my mask? And I was like, oh, I don't need one. And so that just having that thought, it made me really excited. And I know we talked and we've been talking about, oh, we are moving forward. We just need this, or we just need to get past this. We just need to get over these case numbers. And now that we are, it's exciting, truly exciting. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Maddie. You said it very well.
All right, thank you, Dr. Sweeting, for that great update. It's fantastic news. Next up is our second reading and adoption of Board Policy 6220, bid or request for proposal requirements. We'd like to bring Gina back to the podium, and she can review any revisions that were made.
Yes, thank you. So yeah, second reading of policy 6220, bid or request for proposal requirements. Just to reiterate that we're making these proposed changes because it will help bring our policy into compliance with legal requirements. Bid requirements have had a lot of changes over the past, I would say, 5 to 8 years. The latest changes are mainly to bring the policy into additional compliance with federal guidance. Federal guidance around procurement is very detailed and very particular and highly audited by our state auditors. So this is an area where we have to update our board policy. There's a statement that's added under Interlocal Cooperation Act, Section E, that states we have to make sure that if we enter into an agreement with another government to piggyback off their bid process, that another governmental entity has already done, that we have to make sure that they have followed their own bid requirements. So we have to check. And it goes on to update federal procurement requirements for goods and services by adding language around self-certification as a low-risk entity, which would allow a higher purchase threshold before you have to demonstrate the best deal through documenting quotes. It further goes on to talk about cost price analysis, which is required for very large purchases, 250,000 or more, using federal funds. Mostly this would only be triggered by things that we already bid in our child and nutrition services area. And it would need to be taken care of as part of the bid process. Basically says we have to pre-analyze and know what a good market price is for something so that we know if the bids are coming in at a reasonable level. Final paragraph G, interlocal cooperation, is just another repeat of what was said earlier about our interlocal agreements. So that is the part that was proposed for changes, just the updating that. And I want to mention that in our previous reading of this policy, it was noted minority business was language that was used elsewhere in the policy. And that was a term that was used. And while it wasn't part of what was being updated, we were contemplating how can we change that descriptor, what could be used instead. And I did some research, and it was as I suspected, that its use in this context in the policy ties to RCW language. So the specific definitions that are around it, to change it, I need to recommend that we stay with the language that we have, only because the context ties out to specific RCWs that define what's supposed to be included with that. I kind of would relate it to similar how we were approving the Indian education. Federal language sometimes is it's all written into things. So I think down the line, we may see changes in some of those kinds of things, but until when we're trying to reference the context exactly, that's what's being called out and coming into play in this policy, that we probably are better to leave it. So I'm sorry, that's what I'm recommending. I didn't come up with a better way. And that's all. Any questions?
I was going to ask, does anybody have any questions on this second reading? All right, this is an action item. This is our second reading and adoption. Do we have a motion to approve board policy 6220 bid or request for proposal requirements?
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion. We approve 6220 policy.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve board policy 6220 bid or request for proposal requirements. Madam Clerk, can we please take a vote?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
Thank you. Policy is adopted. Thank you. Next up is our informational items. We'll have our superintendent report next.
I have two items. And what the first one is that last Friday we had student voices at Weston High School, and I have to say it was just great to hear their feedback. They were very honest and sincere, and it was wonderful. They shared with us that they love their school. They love the small community. They love that they can get to know each other like a family. They also shared that they would like to have more electives and they would like to have more food choices at lunch. That is the top answer for almost all schools, but they really were a great group, and thank you, President Levesque, for coming. It was wonderful. The second thing I wanted to share is that we spoke earlier about honoring our certificated staff and the teachers and the wonderful work that they do. And I do thank them and we do appreciate them greatly. But there's some other folks that this week is Administrative Professionals Assistance Week. And we have some awesome people across the district who support many people. And I have two in my office that are they're perfect in every way. And in that they serve I had just outstanding. So I just want to just honor them and celebrate them in a big way and thank Brenda and Debbie for the work that they do and the support that they give, not only to myself, but the district as a whole. So thank you.
They're a little shy, but we sure love them. Next up, we're gonna have our legislative update. Director Kelly.
Not much to add. Yes, Erica and I kind of work with each other. I'm the person kind of in name, but having a full-time teaching position prevents me from attending those meetings, which was not the intention back in the fall when I signed on for that role. So when Erica can attend, she always provides that information to me. We just kind of stay connected. So no updates right now.
Thank you. Can we have comments from our board members now? I'd like to start with the students. Kyle, would you like to share anything?
I would just like to say it's Teacher Appreciation Week next week, so I'm appreciating my teachers. Thank you so very much. I was glad to see Mr. Shalati here. It was certainly an experience. Congratulations to Ms. Herman for being the principal. I was lucky enough to participate in those interviews, and it was a great experience. Just congratulations again. It'll be nice to see you, and I would love to see what you will be doing. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. Maddie, would you like to share some thoughts?
Yes, please. So right now it is Kindness Appreciation Week at Arlington High School, and it is my last Spirit Week ever. And so that's a little sad, but I just wanted to come on and spread some kindness and thank everyone for presenting and speaking at the board and just going through during this hard time. It's been really difficult, but being here, sitting in this chair feels pretty great considering it's been 2 years. So that's been pretty awesome. I just want to thank everyone and all of the staff, and it's just amazing. And I'm so excited to be here, and I just can't wait to see what Ms. Herman does as well. And congratulations. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Director Kingman, would you like to share any thoughts?
Nothing for me tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Director Ray.
No, just glad we got through a great meeting.
Thank you. Director Kelly, do you want to share any thoughts?
Thank you.
Director Knapp.
Sure, I'll go. Congratulations, Ms. Herman. That's so exciting. Tonight truly feels like a banner night. We're in the boardroom, many exciting things, and just looking at the mini grants and then approving the new curriculum. It's very, very exciting. And I just love to see all the interests that the teachers were taking in their mini grants. That is just really moving to me. So it's really exciting. And thank you everyone for being here and doing everything that, it's so much work. So happy to be here.
Thank you. I would like to share that it is Autism Awareness Month, and April is also Diversity Month, and it's also National Arab American Heritage Month, and it's also School Library Month. But my favorite part of April is that it's also Poetry Month, and I have written a very short little poem. It's been 775 days since a meeting was held here. Separated no more, COVID can no longer interfere. Now with less equipment and gear, we can all together appear and still here. With teamwork sincere, focus on goals crystal clear. Without any fear, our learning will persevere. Our families and volunteers reappear with our renewed connections so dear. Together with students and staff, we adhere. Happily, let's cheer. It feels like hope is back when the board is back. So we're so happy to be back in this room. It feels like coming home. Our next board meeting will be held on Monday, May 9th at the district office boardroom at 6 p.m. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second. It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. Madam Clerk.
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
Have a great night. Drive safe.